This is from Maya in Florida. I think the hardest truths arrive when you least expect them. I sat in a doctor's office. The air too cold, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. He said 3 letters. ALS. I stared at his mouth moving, but my ears filled with silence. My first thought wasn't about me. It was, what about my children? I was 44 years old, a court reporter who thrived on telling other people's stories. I loved the rhythm of a courtroom, the shuffle of papers, the rise and fall of voices. My pen was steady, my fingers quick, until one day they weren't. Suddenly, my own story took center stage, and I wasn't sure I wanted anyone to hear it. The first sign came quietly, almost like a cruel whisper. In 2009, I noticed my left hand looked different, smaller, almost withered. I flexed my fingers again and again, hoping it was an illusion. At night, I tucked it under the blanket so John wouldn't notice. I told myself it was nothing, but deep inside, I knew something irreversible had begun. For months, I chased excuses. Maybe it was carpal tunnel, or stress from typing long transcripts. I bought wrist braces, rubbed ointments, even changed keyboards. Denial felt safer than truth. I kept up routines, packing school lunches, folding laundry, pretending normalcy. But each time I dropped a dish or fumbled a button, dread crept closer. I wondered how long I could keep pretending. John, my husband, was a high school teacher, patient and steady. Our 3 children filled the house with life. Marina, a teenager with bright eyes and louder dreams. Aubrey, my gentle middle child. And Wesley, my youngest, navigating the world with autism. Their laughter and chaos anchored me. At the same time, the thought of leaving them someday was unbearable. One evening, I watched Marina rehearse for a school play, the stage lights painting her face golden. She laughed at her friends' mistakes, carefree and unaware. I clapped loudly, but inside, grief pressed heavy. Will I ever see her in a wedding dress? Will I walk her down an aisle? The fear wasn't about dying. It was about missing life. The moment everything shifted came in a Burger King parking lot. I sat in my car, staring at a crumpled napkin in my hands, tears soaking it until it tore apart. I thought of my 44 years, a career I loved, a marriage, children who needed me. Then it hit me. I had 1 more healthy year left, and I refused to waste it. From that day, my mindset shifted like a light switch. Instead of asking why me, I asked, how can I live fully now? I made lists of places, experiences, and simple joys. No more waiting for the right time. Every trip, every memory, every laugh had to be created now, before my body slipped further away from me. The kitchen table turned into a planning station. Maps overlapped with sticky notes, airline confirmations, and scribbled itineraries. Marina chose New York, where we could try on wedding dresses she might wear one day. Aubrey wanted dolphins. Wesley wanted the beach. Each plan became a promise. Not that I'd live forever, but that our time together would matter. In the backyard, I built a little chickie hut, its thatched roof swaying in the breeze. It became my sanctuary. Even as my hands weakened, I sat there and tapped on my iPhone with one thumb, writing notes, fragments, and stories. I wanted my children to have my words, proof that their mother chose joy, even as her body failed. Travel became my way of fighting back. Every plane ticket felt like I was stealing time from the illness. Walking through airports wasn't easy. My legs dragged, and I tried not to show it. The kids watched me closely, pretending not to notice. I told myself, they'll remember the trips, not the way I limped. That thought kept me moving. In New York, Marina wanted to try on wedding dresses. She twirled in front of a mirror, gowns spilling across the floor. I clapped and smiled, but inside I broke. I knew I wouldn't live to see her real wedding day. Still in that moment, I was there. I was her mom, and that was enough for me to hold on to. Aubrey's dream was to swim with dolphins. At the aquarium, he reached out and touched one, his eyes wide. "Mom, did you see?" he shouted. I nodded, even though my arms ached from clapping. Watching his excitement made me forget the pain. For a few minutes, I wasn't sick. I was just his mom, cheering him on, like always. Wesley wanted the beach, so we built sandcastles together. He laughed when the waves knocked them down and chased the water, his little feet splashing everywhere. His autism sometimes made the world feel too loud for him, but not that day. He was free. I forced my body to kneel next to him, even though my legs hurt. I didn't want to miss it. Travel wasn't easy. Planes cramped me up, and strangers stared when John had to help me into a taxi. At night, I cried quietly in hotel bathrooms so the kids wouldn't hear. I missed the woman I used to be. But in the mornings, I smiled like nothing was wrong. My family needed joy more than my tears. That became my rule. John and I went back to Budapest, a city we had visited when we were young. Back then, we thought life was endless. This time, I could barely walk along the river. He held my hand, steadying me. I whispered, "Thank you for still seeing me." He kissed my forehead and said nothing. But I knew what he meant without words. At home, I spent hours in the little hut we built in the backyard. It was quiet there. I typed on my phone with one thumb, and later with my nose when even that stopped working. It was slow and frustrating, but every word mattered. I wanted my kids to have my thoughts written down, something to keep when my voice was gone. For your info, ALS is rare, but it changes everything. It slowly takes away movement, but not the mind. People who have it stay sharp, which can feel cruel. You're trapped in a body that stops listening while your thoughts keep racing. Families carry that burden too. The first symptoms of ALS are often small and easy to miss: muscle twitches, clumsy hands, or a weak grip. Over time, it spreads to walking, speaking, and swallowing. It doesn't happen all at once, which can make the slow changes even harder to accept. Anyway, my book grew piece by piece in that hut. I didn't plan for it to be published at first. I just wanted my kids to know their mom beyond the disease. But somehow, the pages turned into a manuscript. Every word I wrote felt like I was leaving a trail for them, something to follow long after I was gone. Then came the surprise. A publisher wanted it. A movie deal followed. Suddenly, strangers were reading my words, telling me I inspired them. It was overwhelming. I never set out to inspire anyone. I just wanted to give my family something to hold on to. But if my story helped someone else, maybe that was worth it too. As the disease progressed, my arms grew heavier. Holding a fork felt like lifting bricks. Friends came by with meals, and I hated needing the help. I'd always been independent, but now even feeding myself was slipping away. Still, I smiled when they visited. I wanted them to see me as more than the illness. I wanted laughter in the room. Speech was the hardest to lose. My voice had always been strong, in the courtroom, at home, everywhere. When words began to slur, I avoided phone calls. I hated repeating myself. I wondered how my kids would remember me. Not the slurred voice I hoped. Maybe they'd remember the bedtime stories, the silly songs in the car, the mom who never stopped talking. John carried so much. He worked, cared for the kids, and then cared for me. Some nights I watched him sleep, his shoulders rising and falling, and guilt sat heavy on my chest. I whispered thank you, even though he couldn't hear it. He didn't sign up for this life, but he stayed anyway. That kind of love deserves to be remembered. What I feared most was disappearing from my children's lives before they were ready. I didn't want fear to be my story. I wanted them to remember that even when my body failed, I tried to fill our time with joy. That choice became my anchor on the hardest days. I thought about my daughter's future often. I pictured her walking down an aisle, laughing with friends, holding her own children one day. I wouldn't be there, but I hoped she'd feel me in the small things, a certain song, the way sunlight hits her kitchen table. I prayed she'd know I loved her deeply, every single day I was alive. With my sons, it was different. I worried they'd be too young to keep memories clear. So I left them notes, small letters about who they were at that age. Wesley's love for puzzles, Aubrey's quiet kindness. I wanted them to open those letters years later and hear my voice between the lines, even if they'd forgotten the sound of it. As my strength faded, simple moments mattered most. Sitting outside watching the sunset, Hearing my kids laugh from another room, John's hand resting on mine, I realized joy wasn't always big trips or bucket lists. Sometimes it was just breathing in the evening air, knowing I had made it through another day with the people I loved. The memoir was finally published. Strangers wrote letters telling me they cried, or they booked trips of their own, or they finally said things they had been holding back. It was strange, seeing my private pain turn into someone else's motivation. Part of me felt exposed, but another part thought, maybe this is why I kept writing, even when it hurt. Near the end, I thought less about loss and more about gratitude. I had 40+ years of health, a career I loved, and 3 beautiful children. Not everyone gets that. I still wished for more time, but I also knew I had lived enough to fill 1,000 memories. Gratitude softened the fear. It didn't erase it, but it helped me breathe easier. I don't know how you'd face something like this. Maybe you'd fight, maybe you'd hide, maybe you'd try to fill every day with joy like I did. What memory would you create today if you knew time was short? Tell me in the comments, and if my story spoke to you, consider subscribing.